Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome, Andy. Welcome, Chris. Thanks for taking our invitation to do this interview. I suppose a good place to start was perhaps maybe start with you, Chris, and then move on to Andy. If you could tell us a bit about you, your tenure, and your role at University of Cambridge.
I'm Chris Garrett. I am the operations manager for the servers and storage team for the University Information Systems, which provides central IT to the university. I've actually worked at the university for about 18 years, starting out as a systems administrator and gradually sort of taking on more and more responsibility over time. And the team I look after, deals with a number of services that are presented to the whole university, including university search. But obviously, we're also dealing with virtualization and private cloud and websites and business systems.
And I'm Andy Batey. So I've been at the university 25 years now, mostly as a system administrator, working originally in department and now in the central services. So I'm in Chris's team and my role is Linux technical lead, but within that includes multiple services such as the university search. I guess like Chris, we all cover a large number of things across the Garrett. It's not very well, not very partitioned. So we have to be multi-skilled, and web development is something that I have done in the past, and that obviously feeds into sort of understanding the search elements of this.
I guess that keeps your skills sharp. You're not pigeonholed into something, which is great. Well, then maybe Andy, when it comes to your audience, who are you trying to reach with digital platforms, and how does that impact the work of the IT team directly?
Just about everybody we're trying to reach. So as a university, obviously, particularly as a University of Cambridge, we have a worldwide audience, from prospective and current students. So that's trying to attract people to come and study at the University of Cambridge, and also researchers. So whether that is actually trying to bring people in to want to work here or just collaborate with our researchers here. So we've got that worldwide view. But equally, we've got a very sort of internal view, so where we're passing on information and providing the platform for departments and other services in the university to provide information internally. And that makes for a difference, because obviously we don't want to be exposing all of our internal workings to the world. Partly, some of it we don't want the world to know, but mostly they don't need to see all of that detail. And so when it comes to something like search, we have to be able to present it in a way that's relevant to the person who's searching, and how we understand what they're going to want to come back to them. And we have to bear that in mind in everything that we're doing. It's exactly what audience are we trying to attract with this.
Okay, fascinating. And perhaps, Chris, how has the IT department's approach to technology changed over time?
Well, the IT department we're a member of at the moment, UIS, was actually formed out of a number of different IT departments a few years ago. And we've sort of had a lot of consolidation going on over the last few years. Cambridge historically has done a lot of homegrown software. A lot of quite widely used technology has been used in Cambridge over the years, things like Zen and Exim and many other pieces of software. So there's been a culture of creating things here. However, over time, when you move out of that period of time where things get invented, you get to a point where there are standardized offerings. So over time, we're seeing IT shifting from homegrown stuff for nearly everything to a point where we start to use commercial software, especially for the business systems, if we're going back a few decades. And now everything's moving towards standard offerings, unless we need to do the development still to actually add value. Recently, of course, we're moving to SaaS offerings along with a lot of other people in the industry. We still develop our own services. We've got unique structure and challenges. We still have to tailor what we do, but now we're more likely to take a standardized platform with an API and then modify it for the Cambridge use, rather than actually creating everything from scratch.
And I imagine just even the management of some of that legacy software is a unique challenge for university IT.
Yes. So you need to make sure that any development effort is well targeted.
Are there some other kind of unique challenges from working in your particular industry and your sector?
Yes. So the University of Cambridge has got it's not a completely unique structure, but it is an unusual structure in that it is collegiate. So we have colleges, we have the university. So that's always provided a challenge in IT. We have a devolved structure, we have independent pockets of IT across the estate, and we have complex institutional structures. There are sort of multiple layers of organization, and it's not really hierarchical in through the whole organization in the same way you would find in a company. So this offers us some challenges, and not every product is able to cope with a structure that looks like the university's structure. So Funnelback is one. We're able to get it to understand the structure of the university and provide useful search results, but that's a constant challenge. We have to look for products that are able to cater for the complexity that we have.
And then perhaps, Chris, as well, how do you see kind of IT in higher education evolving into 2023 and beyond?
I think we'll use more cloud services, we'll use more SaaS offerings. That's definitely the way things are going. There's also going to be an adjustment to hybrid and remote working where it makes sense. IT staff can often work remotely. Researchers across the university might not be able to. They might need to be near lab equipment or specific systems or specific premises. So this will vary across the estate, and it's something the university is constantly evaluating. And then there's a long-running theme about digital transformation. So the university's website presence is very complex, and work is being done to make it more accessible, make it easier for people to find what they need, provide a better structure to things than we currently have. And I think we'll see work on that pushing forward over the next few years.
Well, I'd love to dive specifically into the search initiative that Cambridge embarked on. Perhaps we can start with you, Andy. We all know that as the conversations has gone, that university web estates are complex. How would you describe the situation at Cambridge?
Yeah, I think any university is a complex institution. They're so large. Cambridge is even more so. And as Chris, it's about the collegiate sort of structure of the university. There's what people would consider to be the central part of the university, and then all of the colleges who are separate entities, and they govern themselves. A lot of departments are used to governing themselves when it comes to websites and things like that. There certainly isn't any level of central control, and there isn't really any level of sort of central coordination of it at the moment, although the whole sort of digital presence strategy is working towards that. So that does raise some issues for us. So a sort of good example is course descriptions. The way that Cambridge works is courses, or the students interact with their colleges rather than the university as such. And so if you had the course description for, say, biology or something, the department will have their course description, what they believe they're going to lecture. The college will also write a course description for that in the way that they believe it's going to be delivered. And they'll be in the same area, but they won't be identical. And so when it comes to returning search results, we have to be very careful about which gets presented as the authoritative statement on the courses in the university. And so that is a complex sort of thing for us to deal with, and it is one of the nice things that Funnelback is capable of doing so.
You touched on an interesting point there about like search being a source of truth, but maybe you can expand on that. So why do you think search is important for large universities like Cambridge?
We have so much information. At the moment, we are indexing millions of pages, and in order to, and across thousands of websites. So for somebody to be able to find a bit of information without a search engine, they're going to be, they'll spend all day just trying to find the websites that they need to look at to find the information. It is that sort of one-stop shop of where to go and start the journey for finding a particular bit of information. And we have totally different website structures. If you go to one department's website, it will be structured totally differently to any central provision or another department. So there's no simple way of being able to extract that information without a very capable search engine. And I think it's difficult because people can describe their courses or whatever, however they want. So we really have to have that free text element to it. So we cannot specify that somebody is going to ask this question in a particular way to get the right results back. It really has to be able to deal with people expressing it in a multiple different ways. And of course, we've got an international audience. And so if your English isn't your first language, you may not express it in the way that I would write it.
Yeah, I guess for another, that kind of ties into what is it that makes search so good? What makes good search good is that it's forgiving. So it takes all of those different phrases and vernaculars and the way that people construct sentences, and it inherently still knows that this is the right piece of information to point them to.
Indeed.
And perhaps, Chris, maybe you could give us some idea about, so what initially prompted the move to the Funnelback search engine?
Yes, so this is before my time in another department. So we're going back to 2013 with the then computing service, and they were managing the search engine at that time. I believe they were using a product called UltraSeek, and the university's web presence was growing. It was becoming more complex, and UltraSeek was beginning to show some signs of strain. It couldn't scale to the size and complexity of the university. So the decision was made back then to move to Funnelback because it had the indexing capabilities we were looking for, had ways of accepting search terms and presenting it. And I believe another factor was that we had a custom search interface at that time, which we were able to modify to use Funnelback as the back end. There was a desire to keep the front end as presented to the user the same at that time, despite a back end search technology change. So that allowed some backwards compatibility. And we were using the templating language in Funnelback in order to integrate everything. And it worked pretty well. I mean, we ran like that for, I don't know, best part of a decade, nearly, before then stripping away the custom search interface and moving to the more vanilla Funnelback HE offering.
Perhaps, Andy, let's maybe dive into some of the specifics of how search has helped. Maybe you could give us some examples when site search has been able to pull this kind of very disparate, federated IT landscape into one place.
I mean, I guess if you think search, there's big search engines out there, web-based ones. And Funnelback gives us something more than that, because it can do the private, or what we would call private search. So we have effectively two interfaces. There's the public search. This is presented to the world, and it's very much like any sort of search engine. It gives us obviously very specific Cambridge-centered results, but it is what is available to the world. We've also got our sort of internal sort of search, whereby Funnelback can look into the protected pages on our websites that are only accessible to Cambridge people and index those as well. So it exposes more information to people within the university than is seen outside, and certainly information that would never be sort of returned by any of the sort of web-based search engines. So that is very important to us, to be able to provide that sort of information to our internal people in the set with all the same advantages that we've talked about search engines in general.
So that's really interesting. That sounds like you're kind of bridging the gap between public and private content and allowing different experiences based on the persona. So cuts out the noise for the public, so they don't need to see kind of operational internal documents, but at the same time provide a richer experience for people that are at Cambridge. You also mentioned earlier the reason you moved to Funnelback was because of the capabilities of the indexing, and then you've got these kind of several UIs that you mentioned. You probably didn't do all this at once. Could you tell me the approach about how you sort of brought to market, for want of a better description, for these kind of initiatives?
Yeah, I mean, this was very much a number of steps as we went through. So we had been with the previous sort of product before. It had a particular look and feel to it that people were used to. So when we went to Funnelback, we had to make sure that we replicated that look and feel initially, so that it wasn't it wasn't everything change at once. So we started off with that very sort of we had our own custom front end in front of the Funnelback results that allowed it looked exactly the same. It had very Cambridge specific ways of referring to some things. Departments here occasionally change their name, merge, and we needed to keep the same sort of tags so that people could consistently find the results for particular departments. And that was very Cambridge specific. So we started with that. We then, having implemented the sort of Funnelback previously, when we moved to the most recent sort of on-premise version of Funnelback, we stripped away quite a bit of that custom front end and started using the Funnelback for HE interface, but retaining the tags and the sort of institution IDs and things. So people could still use the same search URLs and it would still return the same results. They were just presented in a different way, and in a way that enhanced what they got back in terms of the sort of faceted search and everything, with the stencils. And then the next sort of step is to remove some of the last bits of the Cambridge specific sort of areas and move to more standard ways of tagging and sort of selecting certain departments, so that we end up more or less exactly with everything as Funnelback does out of the box, with a sort of a nice sort of Cambridge look and feel to it, but things work functionally as standard because that's much more supportable. And we're going to make better use of some of the things like the best bets in Funnelback, which we currently make a limited use of, but we could do much better.
And that's interesting, that backwards compatibility from previous systems. I imagine that there is a very long tail of backwards compatibility or support that you're going to have to provide in both of your roles at the department in the matter of years. I imagine there still may be some of those ultra-seek tags hanging around. That's just from a common issue is just, that big lift and shift and move everything to a new system within several years is just not possible for an organization with the scale that you guys work in.
Absolutely.
And then, Andy, maybe in your experience, how would you say having a Funnelback site search would benefit higher education institutions specifically?
I think it's mostly being able to unify that complex structure. So most people who want to get information out of the university don't want to start by having to understand how the university is structured in order to find it. And so we need to make sure that we've got that one place they can go to. They can start asking questions about courses, or I'm thinking I might want to go and do some research at Cambridge. How do I find out what they're currently researching? They shouldn't need to understand, well, what is the departmental structure here in order to discover where they should be, because many things are cross-departmental. You don't quite know which department you're going to end up in. So that it's being able to expose all of that information in an easily accessible way. And it's really important to us that people can find that information and can share, that we're sharing it properly across the world. And even if you don't have particular sort of desire to come and study at Cambridge, there's a lot of information that comes out of Cambridge that is just of general interest, be it, to journalists or the members of the public who just think, I'd be quite interested to know what Cambridge is doing with this or what they've found out. And so, of course, sometimes things hit the news that Cambridge researchers have found something quite sort of fundamental. And then we get a lot of hits sort of saying, I want to know about so-and-so. And it's being able to provide that interface. That's what's important to us there.
You can only really improve what you can measure. And I suppose, how are the analytics capabilities of the Funnelback search engine being utilized? And are there any plans for the teams to use that moving forward?
Yeah, so this is really a developing area for us. One of the nice things about the latest versions of Funnelback is the whole sort of analytics side of it that we've never really used before. So now our university comms department can use this to see what searches are being made. Particularly interesting is what searches are being made that returned very few results, because that's something that they need to understand, that people are coming and asking things and we're not providing that information. But it is something that we're learning how to do properly. And so the central comms team are just starting to really to get their sort of hands on this and get around it. What will then happen is that will eventually be delegated out into departmental comms teams so that they can look at that specific bit, and people can start to dig down into the real results and see what we do have in terms of how many people click through when they find things on our search engine, what is the most interesting things, and particularly what things fail most.
Right, well, that's very interesting. So much like the central comms team provide basically content as a service to allow different departments and schools to create their own information online, and you provide the platform to do that. This is kind of similar to that, and it's like search as a service. So I'm a small department, I've got my website, I want to be able to see what people are searching on when they come to that, providing them access to a dashboard that they can then look at their analytics and change the ordering of results. Ultimately gives more autonomy to all of these different business units. And you in the central IT department just make sure it's everything's up and running and secure and serviced correctly. Then perhaps Chris, I understand that, could you kind of you mentioned at the beginning of this call, could you tell us a little bit more about why the institution is moving services to the cloud?
Sure. So this is something where we are trying to do this not across the board, but where it makes sense. And basically, we have a general strategy to move to SaaS offerings where they make sense, where they have a relevant set of functionality that we care about, where the security profile suits us as well. And to try and utilize those SaaS offerings in a standard manner. SaaS offerings tend to be maybe a little bit more simple than products that you might have run on premise. They might have a lower feature set, they might have a different feature set. So that all needs to be taken into account when evaluating it. Where it makes sense, we will move to a SaaS offering because it means that we don't need to spend quite so much time administering infrastructure. It means that you get greater resilience, you get, you get security benefits in lots of cases. So it also means we don't need to reinvent the wheel. And it means that if we're moving a homegrown project to a SaaS offering, that frees up developer time to work on stuff that actually does add value, like genuinely adds value to the way the university uses IT and the way it presents itself to the world.
Right, yeah. And that's really interesting, because I understand that obviously Funnelback Search is now an on-premise solution at Cambridge, but we do have this initiative to move it to the cloud offering. Could you tell us a little bit more about that project? Like, how is this going to work? What are your considerations, and who are you going to have to get involved for it to be successful?
Sure. Okay, so I mean, the primary consideration here is that we don't break anything. There are, as Andy said, thousands of websites. There are, 2.5 million indexed search results, and it's very important that websites that are still needed still have the search integration and that it works. So initially, we'll be moving the processing aspect of the service into the cloud, but we'll still be pitching it through our own sort of load balanced front end, so that we can offer the legacy URLs, the legacy tags. Once we have it in the cloud, the Office of Comms will encourage people to make new websites utilizing funnelback features rather than the old tags. They will deprecate the old tags and will give people time to move and alter their sites, at which point we will then remove the tags, hopefully without breaking anything. And we'll be at a point where all search results can, essentially all search requests go directly to funnelback rather than through our front end load balancers. This isn't going to be immediate. So although we are moving the back end, and I think we'll probably be able to move the back end reasonably quickly this year, the aspect of needing to coordinate and make sure that we don't affect thousands of websites across the university estate means that we'll be in a sort of an in-between manner of working for some time yet. So it's going to be a challenging project. It's going to be an interesting project, but I'm looking forward to seeing what comms can do with the product in its new form, now that we have a way forward to actually use what are more advanced features than our homegrown tagging system, and hopefully make it a lot easier for people to find what they want on the Cambridge website estate, and make it just easier to navigate our website estate.
Well, that's great. I mean, we're certainly looking forward to seeing you guys to leverage for the full breadth of the platform. And that project sounds like almost the technical part is the easy bit. It's the comms issue, which is the tricky sticking point, which is going to take the amount of time, and you have to repeat yourself 100 times in various meetings, I'm sure of it. But we look forward to supporting you and partnering on that initiative, and see you get the benefits moving forward. Thank you both very much for this interview, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.